All right. So I just want to show you guys how to make a stencil and put it up on something so when you spray paint it. This is the first start. You go ahead and you just start to trace out after you've already spray painted on a piece of cardboard. See that smoothness? Now, I know the ugliness about this is that, and this is pretty cool. This is movie magic right here. Look at this. What? But yeah, so this is just a lot of tracing and you know, feeling it out, having a steady hand. Don't use metallic Sharpies, they'll bleed, but I use a metallic Sharpie because I was just in a time crunch. I needed to go somewhere, so I just decided to do that. I'm a little stuffy, so if it just sounds weird, it just sounds weird. But yeah, basically, you know, you just want to try and go over every single line that you can before you cut everything out. And we'll show you what I mean when I say just cut everything out, because I try to use a little more technique aside from that, but I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm a freaking Picasso when I'm not. So right here, this is what I mean when I say we're cutting things out, and I'm using my handy dandy X-Acto blade. So you really just want to try and cut out the excess, the recess, the whatever it is, and you want to save it. That's a big important thing. You see that P? The reason why I cut that out and I'm still keeping that piece of cardboard there is because if I'm gonna go ahead and use like the innards or the outwards, I tend to keep everything together, because if I'm gonna go over it with paint, it'll, you know, give me the extra benefit of it all. So right here, I'm hacking and slashing, I'm, you know, chopping it up. And I really think I did a bad job because I was just, like I said, in a time crunch. But you know, sometimes I can break out the better X-Acto blades that I have inside of my toolkit and actually carve cardboard with a little bit of ease and such, and it'll just look better. I just flicked my cat because he was being bad. Don't abuse your cats. And then, you know, once you're done with all that, you can kind of pop it off. I like to go a couple of times around just because I'm using a weaker blade. If I was using one of my thicker blades, this would be a lot easier to cut through. It would literally go by really fast. But I chose to do it this way. So, you know, and then I try to wiggle it out. Sometimes you just got to keep going. And this is when I said, like, me being on a time crunch really messes everything up, because you just really want to try to be able to cut things smoothly like butter. But once it pops out, it pops out. Now you have that done. Thumbs up. So this is another part that I was going to show everyone. It's just covering a stencil. Shout out to my boy Cowboy Bebop, Spike Spiegel. You know, the event was actually called Poise, and one of the things that I thought of was that. So right here, I folded transfer paper. The back end of the transfer paper and the front end of the transfer paper, I did it that way so that when you just go ahead and layer the sticky adhesive side, you can just peel the bottom half, which is the non-adhesive side, and be able to cover everything easily without having to do a whole bunch of work. This is great when you're doing this part. When you're actually trying to install a sticker, or when you're trying to install a stencil, it becomes a harder job. But you can kind of see that I didn't get everything at the top, but that's okay. Make sure you just have backup and extra. See what I just pulled up my hand and I just had some backup extra. And that's all it really takes. Sometimes you have to just be able to say, if I can just recycle parts, maybe then I don't have to go ahead and grab more material and waste more material. Find extra material and just, you know, do that. It's the same thing with stencils, vinyl, whatever you can think of. That's the best way to look at it. And always make sure that you don't get it stuck onto the surface. But when everything is actually pretty good and sound, you can flip it over and boom, all good. Boom, gotcha. So this is movie magic. Boom. I have both sides of my inner and outer, and now I'm over here at this graffiti event and I have my stencil. So the rule of it is, don't try to douse it. Cover everything up. You have so much space and so much material, especially when you're using a stencil that may not be exactly like the entire size of it. So try to just be able to keep everything contained. That's a big part of this whole thing, is keeping it contained and just not allowing all of your paint to overflow, and then you end up with like a CP mess, because then you have overspray, wind can like play a factor, everything can play a factor. So you really want to try to do your best that you don't get a whole bunch of that stuff. And peeling tape is like one of the most sexiest things you could ever do. And then watch. It looks a little shiny, but whatever. Point of it is, it's a really good vibe.